Welcome to Oregon Voters Digest, the program that brings forward the social and political issues that are important to people living here in the Pacific Northwest. And now, your host, Bruce Broussard.
Welcome again to this segment of the Oregon Voters Digest. I'm Bruce Broussard, your host, and by George, we've got a special here. This is going to be part of our show on Oregon Voters Digest at the studio. However, I'm fortunate to have a guest who I've known for years here in the Portland metropolitan area, but in the state of Oregon for that particular matter. And I thought it would be an ideal time to do that when we're right in a situation where we're trying to pick up leadership. We're looking at leadership during the times of struggles that we're having here within our state. And naturally, I've been spending most of my time in in one of the major cities, which is kind of like the living room, if you will, of our state here in Portland, Oregon. And I thought it would be an ideal time to see if I can get a senior member that's been around the state and all over for that matter. And I'm talking about a gentleman by the name of Dr. Matt Hennessee. Dr. Matt Hennessee he's here. And he's been a very active person. His name is well known in terms of all of the various issues that we've had major concern. As we've been talking about this stuff for quite some time. The whole issue of homelessness and housing and public safety, transportation. I mean, it just goes on and on. But it's not just in one particular area. Portland, just because Portland is a larger, major city aspect of it. So I think it's a natural to basically talk to someone that has been exposed to these issues, and then at the same time being able to identify what areas that haven't as of yet. But everybody's affected along this line. So I thought by getting Dr. Hennessee, Matt Hennessee, and I think that's Bethel. Is it? No, that's not Bethel. It's Vancouver Avenue Baptist Church here in the Northeast Portland corridor, and he's well known there at that particular site. That's his home base aspect of it, and so we're going to interview him and we're going to talk to him about what he feels and bring us up to date about what our issues are, so we can share this with those individuals who are running for office. And those who are not running for office, to sort of put this thing in a kind of like a controlled environment kind of a situation, so we can focus on these issues. I've also indicated to him that, and he's already laid it out to me, that we want to include Clark County too, up in Washington. You might have heard about Vanport, which there it is. It's a core area. It's going to impact all of us here. But we got the three major counties here in Oregon, and then we got the one county in Washington. And you're very familiar with the Clackamas and Washington and Multnomah County, but then Clark County is in Washington. So it's a very important deal that we can get those entities sitting at the table to talk about these issues, and maybe put all the monies in one pot, and then start talking about specifically how can we address this issue with those dollars, and at the same time making sure that we know where those dollars are going, and we got some results at the end of the deal, and that's important. I think I noticed that the mayor went to Clackamas the other day, and there was a media on that piece, but in fact he missed a step, and I got to say we got to respect this man. He almost like the Marine Corps. He hasn't gone to boot camp yet. He's in boot camp. He just hasn't gotten to the point where he's OJT and on the job training. And I'm not trying to knock that in one way or the other. I'm just saying that's what we're going to have to do. But something about politics, it doesn't give you any time. If you're vying for that seat, or especially if you're in the seat, there's no such thing as an OJT. So it's tough. So that's what I'm trying to do. We got to make sure we understand that. And we need to change that path a little bit. The folks who sit in those seats, once they're sitting in those seats, are going to actually be able to their background has to also dictate that they can deal with the issues. Because that other stuff is not going to happen. We got some problems. So with that, I'm just going to go on and quit chatting, and I'm going to bring Dr. Hennessee, Matt Hennessy, here with us, and I'd like to go on and introduce him now, and hopefully he'll just give us a little interview, talk about the church a little bit, if you don't mind, Pastor. And he's a pastor. He's a pastor in our midst, but he's very, very active. Trust me, he's very, very active. Man, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Bruce, for having me today. And I'm grateful to you and to those that follow the Oregon Voters Digest because you provide a lot of information that's so important. And let me also just say we're grateful for you as a community elder. There's so much for us to learn from you, the wisdom that you provide, and the perspective that you have, which is very unique. And we thank you, obviously, finally, for your service to our country.
Well, thank you, man.
That's so important. It really is. I'm grateful to be with you today. I do come as a pastor of 21 years at the historic Vancouver Avenue First Baptist Church. But as you know, I served in public administration as well. Here in Oregon as the head of workers' compensation for the state. And then before I came to Oregon, I was a city manager, a police commissioner. And then, one of the blessings I've had is also, as I think about my career, is I spent 9 years nearly at Nike as a global leader and then led a company, a family business in Lake Oswego for 7 years as well. So, I've had a lot of different pathways. And you recall that I served as chair of the Portland Development Commission, now that we call Prosper Portland, really involved from a standpoint of how we help use resources to promote the city when it comes to such things as affordable housing, as it comes to transportation, mental health, public safety, all of those kind of things. And actually, Bruce, one of the things that I've said to many who have been running for city council, especially, is that you cannot run for city council or mayor and not have public safety as like your top issue, because people want to feel safe. And we've been through a lot here in Oregon recently. And the fact of the matter is, a focus on public safety helps every resident know that we are concerned about them, that we are wanting to do something about the vacancy rate downtown, but we also want people to be able to feel comfortable to be on the streets of Portland, no matter where it is at all. And so, in addition to the things I've shared with you, 10 years ago, I started a group called the Interfaith Peace and Action Collaborative, IPAC, and we work closely as a bridge between community and police to really help us understand one another and to also be able to work together on issues that many times might be difficult, but we can get them done. And so again, I'm grateful to come to your show and to talk with you and your viewers about any of the things that I've shared. The final thing, I'm sorry, was the NAACP, where I serve as the chair of the Political Action Committee. We are nonpartisan, but we have some major things in terms of the positions we take on issues. We also are big on voter registration. So if a person has not registered to vote, we encourage people to get registered. That's the first thing. Secondly, to get educated. Here at our church, in fact, for the community, we have, in fact, sponsored at least 3 or 4, and Dr. Haynes at his church at Allen Temple did the same to help people this last election cycle in 2024 understand what ranked choice voting is, because it's not an easy thing, and we're just getting used to it. So voter registration, voter education, and then finally voter mobilization. In other words, now that you have registered, now that you understand some things, mark that ballot and get that ballot turned in, because the voice of the Black community, the voice of every community is extremely important as we, in this 250th anniversary of our country, come together and say, how do we work together for a more perfect union?
Awesome, awesome. Very, very much so. Well, I guess we get right into the meat of the matter here. You
Yeah.
know, come close those doors. We're in a controlled environment. And so, Matt, we would like for you to share with us, because I'm sure you've been having many encounters, if you will, with all sorts of areas of folks who
Yeah.
are in leadership roles are
Yes.
still looking for answers
Yes.
and
No,
trying to see how do we get community, how do we get the people involved in the process. You
yes.
mentioned the areas of concern, but in most cases, in all due respect, just up front, they're not getting to the people as far as those in the leadership that we need. As far as I'm concerned, they're like employees. You know, the people are the employers. The leaders are the employees, and too often sometimes it's as if as they tend to forget that situation. That's another area. So I'm just going to let you go from that part
Sure.
and just have maybe just chat with us through those discussions you're having. Okay?
I think that sounds good. So I will take the first one, Bruce, if you're okay with that,
Yeah.
in public safety. Certainly, what I've learned is that there are a number of people in the Black community that really have legitimate concerns about police. And most of it goes to police harassment or issues where police shot and killed people, or a negative encounter with police, no matter what. On the other hand, I can say, as one who was a police commissioner in Michigan, and I've certainly worked around many of the police officers here, there is a spirit of wanting to change that narrative. It started with Chief Moose, with Chief Tom Potter, who later became mayor, when we realized that what we were looking at is a concept that says we believe in community policing.
Mm-hmm.
And the point of community policing is the ability for the police officer and the person in the community to get to know one another, to work together, to understand one another, and, by the way, to manage their differences with each other. Differences do matter. And even today, in my work as leader of the Interfaith Peace and Action Collaborative, we're doing that work to be able to help community and police come together in a way to understand each other and understand each other's role. Today, the community policing concept is now under the years of President Obama. It progressed to become 21st century policing. It still is the same. It is still community-based. And what we've got to do here in Portland is really figure out what is the formula for us to be able to have officers who are not just responding call after call after call after call, because when that happens, it marginalizes what you can do to get out into your community. And let me give you a stat for a second, Bruce. In the 1980s, we had 1,000 police officers. Today, we have just above or below 800, right? Yet in the 80s, we were anywhere between 385 to 450,000 people. Today, we're nearing 700,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, it's important. And by the way, it's a very dynamic population that we have now, right? So it's really important that we deal with that issue. Number one, what is the proper staffing for the Portland Police Bureau? Secondly, how do we do that staffing with the understanding that we really do want to employ 21st century policing, and to recognize over time, my push, Bruce, I don't want them to be called police officers. I want them to be called peace officers. I want them to understand that when they come into our community, I want them to have the mindset of peace, reconciliation, and all of those things to really make sure that our encounter is a good encounter, right? And one of the things that's happened here recently is that two things. One is that we have mental health leaders going out, professionals, I should say, going out with police officers on calls that have to do with mental health crises. Okay. In the past, Bruce, those were some of our real challenges. And unfortunately, some people were either injured or lost their life because the police officer had not been trained to deal with mental health issues. Today, that is different. The second one is, and I've been really big on this one, and that is a group of officers who answer calls without a gun. Mm-hmm. Because the gun is not the answer to every call that a police officer takes. In fact, oftentimes it can cause a call to be escalated. So in the areas of public safety, I'm pushing hard for that. We also have the Portland Street response, which I think is really critical. It started out in the fire department. Now it's in the Department of Public Safety. And I think, again, what it does is give an answer to a call without somebody who is showing up with a gun on their hip. Mm-hmm. Last thing I'll say on this section, Bruce, and be ready to answer your questions as well, is that in my years, and remember, I've been around this stuff for 30 some years, mm-hmm. I have to tell you that one of the things I've enjoyed is watching at the retirement gathering, people say, I had a gun on my hip for 30 years, but I never had to use it because I always knew that I could use my voice and work with people and not have to use my gun at all. And I am thrilled when I hear that. And I believe that is part and parcel to what will be important to us in the years to come when it comes to public safety.
Just on that particular subject area, you talked about the community policing aspect of it. Like you say, back when in the 80s, the early 80s, the people were involved.
That's right.
They had street watch. They had block watch.
Right. That's right.
Folks were there, and they would be out there in the evening, if you will. Yeah. And these are not strangers, if you will. These are just maybe a lot of young folks, nothing to do. We still have an education system that we need to deal with. We have the largest district here in the state of Oregon, for that matter. Right. And they're having problems now, too, the aspect of it. But it's the people that's going to have to react. The mothers and fathers are going to have to react. Right. That's a whole piece aspect of it. So I want to make sure we bring that up. In fact, on that particular point, sometime, maybe we need to set some monies on the side, if you will, and share that. Get a chairperson, put the committee together, and give them the tools that they need, if you will. I mean, we now have everybody's have their own visuals now, right. And they can take photos, if you will, and consider saying that, okay, fine, you take a photo of an accident or this, that, and the other. Guess what? You're someone that's trying to steal something or whatever, then bang, put a little bounty, if you will, there, and put a couple of dollars in their pockets, if you will, to take those photos unannounced to anybody, for that matter. If the person gets convicted, then they get a check. Why not? There's nothing wrong with that aspect of it. Yeah. So we got some good pieces. And as far as the officers are concerned, I'm just throw something else out to you. Sure. Back when they first got the signing, they were actually I made a note to that they're law enforcement officers.
Right.
And they need to be clearly understanding that they are law enforcement officers, not a whole bunch of sidebars, if you will, doing things they're not supposed to do. I'm just throwing something out to the table while you're there, so you can take that back to the group.
No, I think that sounds good. I do. I think that sounds good.
That's and then the other one is, as far as the guns, you're right. But we got to remember, the NRA got involved. They got in politics. They got guns in politics. And they basically used that during the presidential election, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So now all of a sudden, everybody's got an arsenal in their homes. And the older they get, the more guns they're going to get. That's a fact. They're not going to answer no doors at night. And in some cases, once they get over 65 or 70, they just start shooting. It's a fact. You know what I'm saying? It's sad.
It's sad because we are among the developed countries We have more guns than we
Yeah,
have people.
yeah, yeah.
It has to be at about 330 million people, but we've got 450 million guns.
Yes.
It really is.
Yes, and
So
the other thing they do, man, on that same situation, when they get these guns, they can just buy them over the counter. In fact,
yeah,
you don't even have to buy them over the counter.
that's,
They even give license to people selling them out of their cars. That's a
yes,
fact. Got my point? And so these people don't even know how to use a gun. Now, I was in the Marine Corps, but they taught us. We was in that controlled environment. They taught us what the definition of having a gun, and,
yes,
and we had that. They don't have the education piece aspect of it.
no,
They
no,
don't. And the kinds of, and the kind of material you get in the mill today, I mean, they'll sell you anything, whether it be a
true.
bazooka, a tank, you know,
Yeah, they got it.
so that needs to be visited.
My last thought on public safety is for us to really talk about what policing looks like in
Hmm.
the 21st century, number one, and how police and community work together. And secondly, how we fund it. Because right now, the police budget every year comes up against many of the other priorities of the city. The city has about an $8.5 billion budget. The 7.5 billion is already sequestered. Basically, it's restricted. So we're fighting over 1 billion dollars, and the police is right there with many other aspects, operations really of the city, and we need to do better than that. The second thing I'd say, or the last thing I'd say, we had an initiative, Bruce, a few years ago before the pandemic called Breaking Bread, Breaking Barriers.
Mhm.
And it was to bring law enforcement officers and community together to sit down and eat together. And the head of NoHo's restaurant was big on making that happen, as was one of our community partners, Sam Sachs. And all I'll say is it gave people the chance to really see each other as human beings. One evening, we had one here at the church. We had about 4 of them here. But this one police officer was going to be sitting at the table with some of the girls' basketball team from Roosevelt.
Mm.
Obviously, he was a little bit nervous. They were nervous about him too.
Hmm.
And I asked him afterwards and them, how was that? He said, you know what? After a while, it was like sitting in the living room with my daughters talking to their friends.
Hmm.
And that's the kind of stuff that we need to build with one another. And so I say public safety is a huge issue. Mental health. One of the things I'm grateful for is that we are engaging in mental health differently than we have in years past. I think it's a shame that the state basically, divorced itself, if you will, divested from a state mental health facility like we had the one at Damish and
Right.
others. And I think that that's really very unfortunate. I really do. And so, well, we've got some great mental health professionals. We've got a lot of people that work at Cascadia Behavioral Health, which I think have done a really good job. This is one of those conversations, if I were running for governor or you were, that you'd want to be able to sit around the state with people and say, give us the ideas as to how we can make sure that people who are suffering from mental health issues, that they can be taken care of. And here's the thing, even in our church, I have a health committee. One of them happens to be a researcher at OHSU. Another one is a licensed professional for mental health education and rehabilitation.
Mm.
And then I have a doctor who is a orthopedic surgeon who works on overall health. But when I talk about mental health, as you know, in our community for many years, people did not want to admit that there was a mental health problem.
Hmm.
And if they did, it was always spoken of very disparagingly. The fact is, we've all been through a lot of trauma. And it's very important from a health standpoint to be able to say, how can this be remedied, right? And so it's really important that we do that. I think it's also important that the strides we are making with mental health administrators and coordinators going out with police on calls for mental health, very, very very critical. And then beyond that, how do we manage and look at, Bruce, one of the things I heard you say, and I think you're right, is how we make sure over time that we've got an accountability process. Mm-hmm. So that even though we're investing in this, the question is, how effective is it? Okay. And that's what we need to make sure that we marry it with that. And then I'd say for affordable housing, there's lots that's gone on here. The city has, invested in it. The state has, the metro has, all of that. But the real question for me, and I don't know whether this has been done, I could be wrong, because I've been really disappointed that the joint office effort for affordable housing had never been as effective and successful as we had hoped. But I don't know, Bruce, this may sound weird, but my question is, how many homeless people have we sat down and talked to? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right? We've got a lot of discussion about policy and what we ought to do and carrying on like that. But I really want to know from them, because Mayor Wilson came to office specifically on this issue, right? He wasn't elected. He's a business guy. This was his deal. And I like him. I appreciate him, respect him, respect his background. But I really think that we've got to look at this not just as a short term, here's what we're going to do. The question is, what are we going to do long term? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I don't know the answer to that, but I absolutely believe that those who are homeless still ought to be a part of that answer. Now, by the way, here's the last thing I'll say on it. If you're going to invest, don't wait until your budgets all get funny, and then all of a sudden you're ready to divest, right? I'm hearing about, how many shelter beds now are about to be eliminated because we've got a budget crisis, right? And I asked the question, if this is a priority, why is it when we're short on money that's where we first go? Mm-hmm. Because ultimately we ought to be asking ourselves, what is the best way to fund affordable housing? How do we bring developers to the table? How do we bring our business community to the table and really talk about what are the solutions that are sustainable, not just we've got this money, let's go spend it here, but let's find out how we can do sustainable stuff. And again, I would make the homeless population a part of that conversation. I know that we feed those who are looking for shelter down at the Portland Rescue Mission. And I, as pastor, go down as well to serve tables and stuff like that. Now, part of what we do is that we don't have people come in and sit down or grab their tray as if they're in a cafeteria and go to a table. No, we say, we're going to ask you to go to your table, and then we're going to come serve you, right? We're going to serve you your food. We're going to serve you water. We're going to serve you your bread and stuff like that. It's a pattern that nobody asked us to do. It's what we decided to do. And I would say, in terms of sustainable solutions for affordable housing, they need to be at the table as well.
Just a couple of pointers, and like I said, since you're sitting here in this controlled environment, I'm representing the people. I can throw a couple of things at you. You can share, if you will, with the other constituents that are sitting there with you, because that's where you are. You got me?
Right.
And the people have to get involved. And theirs is, hey, look, I'm paying my taxes. I mean, I'm paying for all of these services. I'm even electing these individuals to do the work, and I can't control them. They don't pick up the phone, and then you go on. There's a listing, if you will, and so we're gonna definitely look at the whole issue of the election process for those people who are going to be representing us. That's a very important piece. So the election process is going to be such we have to look at that and redot those I's and cross those T's, and make sure that these folks have resumes.
Yes,
And when I'm talking to that is that, and then the media. The media is a big source there. The media needs to understand they got to be a part and parcel
that's right.
of the solution to this program. And as you look, even now, as you look at, I've been running for office for a number of years, purposely only focusing in the primary, not
Yes.
interested in getting to the seat because I recognized I didn't have the background.
Yeah.
But today I can say I've got background. You got
Yes,
my
you.
point? And I'm not trying to say take any particular issue aspect of it because I've grown a little bit wiser, but I'm older and whatever.
Right.
Realistically, you and I should be sitting down there fishing somewhere. But
Right.
bottom line, but the bottom line is that they need us. They
Yes.
need you. You got my
Yes.
point? And so it's not about age. It's not about this. It's not about this. Is that do you have the resume to
That's
be an
right.
employee? Because when you get hired on a job, that's exactly what the employer was looking at. They're looking
That,
for someone that can produce something for them. So I
agree.
want to throw that out to you. The other thing about the police piece, you made the point I'd like to get, hopefully you can understand where I'm coming from, is that they wear a uniform from, just like I said, when I was in the military. The military, the police, it's a deterrent. That was the whole idea. They don't have to worry about the whole crime 100% of the time. They cut it off when they put that uniform on.
Yeah.
And we've gotten away from that from the standpoint of having career day at schools and having the police there with all these other careers and making it such that we educate our young people about
Right.
what is police work. I mean, that's why we get most of our recruitment, and not be afraid. The other thing is not be afraid of the military because it's paramilitary. And a lot of
Right.
times, but the draft thing comes to mind right off the bat. Everybody should serve that 1 year or whatever. But
Yeah.
we've come into an era that the population of that young group, that in many ways that don't have the affordability of someone taking them by the hand after they graduate from high school and lead them in the right direction. You got my
Right.
point? And so
Right.
that needs to be structured. We got community college. Some people are going to community college trying to pick up, then got these loans. So if you can take that to the table, because these people that you're talking to and they're hearing where you're coming from, because you do it every day. You do it every
Yes.
weekend for sure. But we don't have enough people like that doing that. And then cause we got problem with the church in terms of
Yeah.
standpoint.
That's right.
The standpoint of trying to, so that needs to be sitting at the table. They need to be sitting at the table too, because they
Yeah.
represent people in a controlled environment.
That's right.
It's
That's
a
exactly.
controlled, the world is controlled environment. And then
Yes.
when I think about that, I think about, like you said, we got mental illness that are sitting out on the streets. You're right. Damage was at one point in time, we had a facility for them.
Right.
Got me? And all of a sudden, the developers came in and
Yeah.
they did their thing. But
Yeah.
then all of a sudden, we did approach it at one point in time because there was a former policeman who was then the sheriff, if you will, and his name didn't come up right off the bat, but we had Wapato.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
Sure. Burning
yeah,
juice.
yeah,
Burning.
they put that piece together. See what I'm saying?
Right.
You got me? But then politics got in and they couldn't
Yeah.
put this, they couldn't staff it. A
Right.
beautiful facility, got me? Could probably
Right.
get maybe 200 to 400 people in that thing. And they built it in such a fashion that one could go up. See what I'm
Yes.
saying? And it's there. And then, as you know, someone came in there and said, well, gee, I'm going to take this. People didn't like the idea to a certain degree. And the next thing you know, boom, it gets sold, and taxpayers were very upset about it because about
Yeah.
10 million, about $100 million or so, and it sold it for $4 or $5 million. And
Yes.
and, and I'm not saying, look, a person who purchases looking at it from their own benefit aspect. And Scherzer was basically there, and he picked it up. But my point is that, well, let's go back and visit that facility. It's there with all the particulars. We can basically say he's looking for a lease. So maybe we can just go on and get those people that he has there, put them
Right.
somewhere else, and use that facility. It's already stable, and you
Right.
can go up on it, this, that, and save the taxpayer a lot of money. So those are the kinds of things that hopefully these folks need to understand. I'm talking about the people who are in a position to
Sure.
make something happen. Got me? And that's a very important. And then the other thing I'm throwing out to you is that there's a difference between shelter and home ownership.
Yeah. That's right.
You know what I mean?
I
And
agree.
and and when you start talking about home ownership, and then you got the renting people, people investing for their futures and whatever. That's
Yeah.
important. These people are saying, look, I put money in, I put time in this stuff. And so consequently, people come in and tear things up and this, that, and the other. They get all the restrictions. And so it's a, the point I guess I'm making is, and all wrapping it up, is that the leadership is going to be very important.
Yes,
You know, you are very important. The people that are coming around the table, they want answers, but but the people who represent the the majority of the taxpayers are
yes,
folks that are getting elected to office by them.
that's right. That's
And they don't
exactly
recognize that. They don't have anything to do with it. All they
that's
see is seeing the pretty things on the tubes and this, that, and the other, and whatever. And you got people that, in all due respect, there's no difference in myself and yourself. They're sitting up there. They would be love. They love to be able to be in a position to do that, but they don't want to say anything either.
but
We
that's
just sit around and analyze. So press. I'm just saying the media is a very important piece. Anything? Can you share a little bit about press because they need a little help?
no. Well, actually, I'm glad you raised it because the fact of the matter is, the press is so critical
Hmm.
getting the stories out. I'm a real proponent of the fact that we have a free press.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And it's important because, from an educational standpoint, and I think about all of the various issues out there, they have such an important role to play when it comes to that. And so, my hope and prayer is that that continues and that people pay attention
Hmm.
because, as you know, today people can get news from everywhere. They really need to be able to figure out, is this objective news or is this, slanted in one way or the other and stuff like that. And maybe you can't get to that, but I believe it's important. I really do. I
Hmm.
also believe that it's important for people to share their stories with the press because
Hmm.
sometimes, and this is one of my concerns and my beefs, if you will, with some of our politicians. I'm not naming anybody specifically, but your listening session should not just be when you're running for office.
Hmm.
You should have listening sessions that go on
Hmm.
all year long,
Hmm.
and people have the opportunity to give input, which will obviously inform the decisions that they make around the council table, the legislature, the county commission, the whole bit. All of that's important. And I think that people should not shy away
Hmm.
from talking to the press because the press has an opportunity to get it right.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
That's a very critical piece aspect of it. That's that
Yeah.
communication,
That's right.
educate and communicate and inform. But they've got to understand that they got to hit the masses because at
Right.
one point in time, the media was available to them. You know, you
Correct.
could pick up free press, to a certain degree.
Right.
Or the
No,
Portland Tribune was a good example.
that's
Even the
right.
Oregonian was basically in the school system. They
Yes.
would have discussions. The students would have discussions. They would make sure that they had those newspapers there where they would discuss them with the youth who's coming up, who's taking our place.
Yep.
So I can't underemphasize that. It's a very, very important piece, Matt. And we already talked about the fact that the ministry is whole. Realistically, you also employees too in many ways.
That's
You got my
right.
point? See what I'm
No,
saying?
that's
Eh,
right.
but the bottom line, you're there every Sunday, and that makes a little difference. You know what I mean? The key is that the other entities are kind of like taking that away to a certain degree. So now they need to recognize that the ministry plays a major role within our society across the board. And folks tend not to want to, just like the military to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Being able to, it's a good outlet, if you a good option to catch up on education piece because sometimes your families are not as well to do or, basically well educated, if you will.
Right.
We got to
Right.
make sure we relate to the masses of folks who are just deprived.
No, that I
The
yeah.
crime rate and all this, that, and the other. These are individuals, type routine. And then
Yeah.
the other thing too, I was going to throw out to you to take to
Sure.
the table is that please don't ignore the whole issue of those who don't have the papers. I'm talking about this whole issue of what folks that are here illegal. You hear all kinds of words about illegality aspect of it. And all
Yeah.
that does is just add fuel to the fire of the whole issue of racism.
Yes. It does.
No one wants to talk about that stuff, and you're dividing folks,
Yeah,
the black and the brown, and all kinds of. Look, we're all Americans, right? You got me?
right.
And we speak all kinds of languages here, aspect of it. And this whole business about English as a second language, please, we don't need but one language, because we got to communicate with one another.
That's
That's
right.
why it was designed that way for English aspect of it. And people don't want to talk about the whole issue about the Spanish. You put Spanish folks, they're neighbors, if you will, a nation. They're neighbors, but at the same time, they're looking out for themselves, trying to figure out what are we going to do.
True.
But no one's understand. Look, that's the wrong direction. That'll never work.
That's
You,
right.
you got.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing
I
a bunch of stuff to you now.
No, I appreciate that because, you know, I've always grown up with a thought that no matter who you are, what you look like, what
Mhm.
you're,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, anything else, you're my brother, my sister.
that's right. Yeah.
We are, we are part of God's family, right?
Mhm.
And it's the words of hate and division have really been difficult, and
Mhm.
I'm not one who believes in that at all.
Mhm.
And it's troubling when it comes from so high up because it causes people to think that division and hate and racial prejudice is valid, right? And yet it's not. Not
Mhm.
because of anything other than who we are
Mhm.
and why this nation
Mhm.
was established in the first place.
Mhm.
And so, therefore, I feel that we have a big obligation to do our part to make sure that somebody who may not have been born here has an ability to become a citizen,
Mhm.
because that's honestly the way it's been for years, right? And
Mhm.
I look at this and say, you know, during President Obama's term, we know now that we have something called dreamers,
Mhm.
people who were,
Mhm.
born here, their parents weren't, and stuff like that. And the fact of the matter is, we ask if you'll come out of the shadow, we will give you a
Mhm.
pathway to citizenship. And here we are, and they still don't have a pathway to citizenship.
Mhm.
Um, During the Bush administration, it was talked about that we want to have really strong legislation that allows us to deal specifically with immigration.
Mhm.
Where is that legislation? Part of the reason why we have the issues we have today, or the rhetoric that sounds so evil and broken, is because Congress never fulfilled its duty to go back to a session and say, we're not leaving here until we get a solution, and it's only about immigration. And my feeling is, without that, that's why we have what we have. And by the way, people can point fingers to Democrats or Republicans or independents. I look at it and say they're all guilty,
Yeah.
because this should have been dealt with a long time ago.
Well, that's a good point you make, because that's another major point. Because when you think about my definition of politicians, it's all about the money.
Yeah,
Is this a fact? It's
yeah,
about the money,
that's
and
right.
they don't. And when they get there, they say, "Hey, look, I get taught right up front
Oh
that
yeah,
if you're gonna survive
yep,
in this business, you're
that's
gonna
right.
have to understand what that lobby is all about." I
No,
mean,
that's listen. That's why we don't have strong gun
right,
legislation.
right,
You alluded to it
right,
before. The NRA
yeah,
is
yeah,
so strong as a special
yeah,
interest group.
yeah, yeah,
I don't care how many
yeah.
shootings we have,
Hmm.
and no matter where they are, we have a moment of silence. We have
Hmm.
a moment of reconciliation. We've got people talking about, wanting to do something when it comes to legislation on guns, and then nothing.
Hmm.
Right after the issues, the person's been buried or people have been buried, it's as if the issue doesn't exist
Hmm.
anymore.
Hmm.
And that's just so far from
Hmm.
the truth.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
we've got work to do.
Yeah, we got a lot of work to do. Well, maybe we'll close at this point, but I'm gonna keep the door open because we're gonna make you an official DI, if you will, because in all due respect, it's about a closed environment, so to speak, and you identify the religion basically identify right at the top of the deal. You
Yeah.
got many guys. That's what you do. That's what you do. That's your lane, if you will. And
Right.
it's very important. And the other lane, and I'll just real quick, like, is that we got all these folks on the streets and this, that, we have nowhere to go. We don't have any facilities to hit the mental illness aspect of it. And you know, we didn't talk about the other issue that, and that was the whole issue of the feces on the streets and the yards and things of that nature. Well, wait a minute. You think about it. You know, these units, these folks that are out there feeding the folks. You got my point? Uh,
Yeah.
they got to
Yeah.
go somewhere and
Yeah.
release it. They got to go somewhere, and they
Yes.
don't have no place to go. So
Yes.
let's be honest about this piece. So the only way you can get them back on track to a certain degree is to pick them up, put them in
Yes.
a controlled environment. And the only controlled environment we have in our society, you come up with a law, piece of law that says if you attempt to do this and you get caught, you go to the institution. Well, you
Right.
go to the institution. That's a controlled environment, and
Yeah.
when they clean you up, et cetera, and they put you into a room situated with a roommate. And then all of a sudden, that roommate, you will not allow any of that feces. No, you're going to be able to do this. You're going to be able to eat and this, and the other. So you
Yeah.
get them back on track. It's
Yeah.
not called a prison or nothing like that. But the
Right.
fact of the matter is, it's a law you just can't do that for disease purposes and a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
So we need to get that squared away, and especially downtown and things like that. Because on the weekends, that's when people go and basically spend their monies and
Yeah.
relax and this, that, and the other. We don't have nobody, no place anymore, right?
Yeah.
See,
Right.
so I'm just throwing just common sense stuff. But
That's
let's
right. No, it
think a little
sounds good.
bit. You see?
I think it sounds good. There's a great audience for it. And I would just say that we need to press upon our elected officials to really have those conversations and create outcomes
Right,
that can be worked on, that are
right,
viable, and
right,
that ultimately people's lives will be saved.
right,
I
right, right.
believe we
Well,
can do.
well, Matt, I say Matt first because I want to make sure that the young people can identify with you. I
It's
mean, I
our
want you've been that kind of a person. You can identify with everybody.
right.
So calling your first name and things of that nature kind of puts a little bit more ease in the deal. And they can always, oh, I know your doors are opening down there
That's
at,
right.
at Vancouver Avenue Baptist Church. It's kind of like it's another, it's a place, if you will, to
That's
be
right.
able to chat and this, that, and
Right.
the other. And that's why I
Yeah.
appreciate it. And and I can, and so this has been great. And hopefully you will maybe think about the possibility of we could put something together periodically. You can just come up and give us a little update on some of
That
the
sounds
things
good.
you're doing and your constituents, right?
I'd be happy to. I'd be happy to, Bruce. It's
Okay.
an honor to be with you.
Okay. Well, this
Thank
has been just great. It's been great, and thank you very much for being here with us. And anything I can do to help, and like I say, for those individuals who are interested in running for office, and you want to be a part of the process, we need common sense folks. We need
you.
people
Right.
from the community, the people.
Yes.
If you got something on your mind and it betters our way of life aspect of it, you can run for office. You can run
Yes.
for office. You don't have to have a PhD or this, that, and the other.
Right.
Just put your name down there and you pay your little fee and you get out there and you learn something.
That's right.
Learn something. I've been doing it for years, and like I said, I started out in politics. Politics. Now I understand the difference between politics and the people. Yeah,
That's right.
you know what I'm saying? And
Right.
I did not want to sit in those seats, but
Right.
now I've been through a number of major seats, only
Yes.
from the standpoint of learning something.
Yeah.
They
That's
weren't calling me before, but they called me then.
that's
I
right. I
was sitting at the
understand.
seat, right? You got me? But
I
now
told
it's the deal. So I encourage young people to consider that, this that type of deal. But you can
Amen.
start with the church. You guys are the lead. So Matt,
Amen.
thank you very, very much for the
Thank you.
time, and we'll be talking soon again.
Wonderful. Good to talk to you, Bruce. Thank you,
Thank you,
brother.
sir. Mhm.
Take care.